So if you're watching this video right now, there's a decent chance that you are legally required to pay your taxes quarterly, and if you don't, the IRS is going to hit you with some steep taxes and penalties come tax season. So in order to prevent that, I'm going to break things down as simply as possible in this video, give you all the information you need to know about quarterly taxes, and I can confidently say that this is the most comprehensive video you are going to find on this subject on YouTube, and I can say that it is going to be worth your while to take some time, really focus on what I'm saying in this video, put your distractions away, and maybe if you're feeling ambitious, take some notes while you're going through this video, because it's gonna save you a lot of time in the long run, potentially some serious money as well in terms of those taxes and penalties like I mentioned. And just a quick disclaimer so nobody's confused, I am not a tax advisor, I am not your tax advisor, and this is not tax advice. In a lot of cases, it is gonna be possible for you to do your taxes yourself, but if your situation is particularly complicated, then I would say your best bet is going to be talking with a professional. But that out of the way, let's get right on into the video. So we're gonna start off by talking about what quarterly taxes actually are, then we're gonna move into when they're due, we're gonna move then into who is actually required to pay them, then we're gonna talk about how much quarterly taxes actually are, we're gonna talk about how to actually pay them, I'm gonna do a screen share on my computer, dive into the step-by-step process for paying your quarterly taxes, and then we'll wrap it up by talking about what happens if you don't pay them, because some people choose not to actually pay their taxes quarterly. I have some friends who are making some serious money online that choose not to pay quarterly, so we're gonna talk about what happens in that case, because you've probably heard of people choosing not to pay quarterly, so we'll talk about what happens if you don't. And as always, you can feel free to use the timestamps down below in the description to navigate to whichever section applies to you specifically, so you don't have to watch the whole video if you only want one certain part. So let's start off by talking about what quarterly taxes actually are. Well, for a lot of online entrepreneurs, they are a big surprise in what quarterly taxes are, okay? Because most people are not expecting to have to pay, one, as much in taxes as they actually end up paying once they start working for themselves, making some money online, and two, they're not expecting having to shell out that money quarterly as opposed to just once a year like you traditionally do with your taxes come April 15th. But mechanically, quarterly taxes are the requirement for individuals making above a certain threshold, which we're going to get into later, to pay their taxes 4 times per year as opposed to just 1 time per year like you would if you were an employee. Now, it's important to note here that the United States is a pay-as-you-go tax system, and essentially what that means is that instead of just paying in all your taxes at one point during the year like some countries choose to operate, the US wants to collect taxes on a consistent basis from you, okay? They want you to be paying in consistently so that the IRS has consistent cash flow coming in, the government can consistently spend money, and it's not just like one big payday for the government and then they have to ration that out over the whole year, because like the government spending, you know, they've got a whole lot of problems going on over there. So they want to get money on a consistent basis. Now, if you're an employee, what happens is they're getting money taken out of your paycheck every 2 weeks. So the government is getting paid every 2 weeks if you're an employee. But if you are your own employer, if you're self-employed, an online entrepreneur, then you are not paying in every 2 weeks. Okay, you're not having anybody withhold money from your paycheck because you're just getting the money and then it's going right into your bank account. Okay, so there is no withholdings for you. So that is why you have to pay quarterly taxes, because it's a pay-as-you-go system and you're not allowed to just pay in once a year and then say you're good for the whole year. You know, the IRS is just not gonna let that fly. So like the pro here is that you're not just facing one like huge tax bill every April 15th, but the con here is that you're facing 4 somewhat huge tax bills spread out throughout the year that you're going to have to plan for and account for, and it's gonna mean less cash in your business, because if you were to just pay taxes once per year, you could just hold on to that money for the entire year. You could earn interest on that, you could reinvest it in your business, but because you have to pay it in 4 times per year, that's less working capital in your business that you have to invest in things like marketing and just growing your business. So you would expect quarterly taxes to just be due every 3 months, right? Because 3 months is a quarter of the year, but the IRS does not like to make things simple. If there's one thing the IRS likes, it is overly complicating things, so that is not how it is going to work. Instead, they're spread out throughout the year, not really evenly, but here are the 4 dates that you're going to need to know when it comes to paying your quarterly taxes. So your first quarterly tax bill is due on April 15th. That is normal tax day, the same time you'd be paying taxes if you were an employee. So that's payment number 1. Payment number 2 comes in at June 15th, which is actually only 2 months after April 15th. So you don't get a full 3 months, you only get 2 months between those 2 payments. Your next payment is going to be due on September 15th, so that is 3 months later, you get a full quarter there. And then after that, your last payment is due on January 15th, so that is 4 months. So as you can see, they're not quite evenly spread out throughout the year as one might like. But on each of these tax days, basically what you got to do is you have to pay an estimate of what you owed in taxes for the previous period. So basically on each of these days, you're going to pay an estimate of what you owed for the previous period in terms of tax. And we'll have more on how to calculate that estimate in just a little bit here. So basically just know that 4 times a year on those dates that I mentioned, you are going to need to pay the IRS some money, or you're going to face some interest and penalties, which we're going to get to in just a little bit. But all that being said, who is actually required to pay quarterly taxes? Well, according to the IRS, individuals, including sole proprietors, partners, and S corporation shareholders, generally have to make estimated tax payments if they expect to owe tax of $1,000 or more when their return is filed. Now, to translate that into English, if you're going to owe the IRS more than $1,000 in taxes throughout the course of the year, then you do have to pay quarterly tax payments. But how do you actually know if that's you and if you're going to personally owe the IRS more than $1,000 this year? Well, in general, rule of thumb, very broad, does not apply to your personal situation, is that if you make more than $10,000 of profit from your business, you are likely going to owe more than $1,000 in taxes. Again, that's a very rough estimate. In order to get the actual amount of taxes that you're going to want to pay in quarterly and figure out if you're supposed to be paying quarterly to begin with, you're going to use the form 1040-ES. And this form can honestly be pretty intimidating if you're not familiar with taxes. So I'll have a full video coming soon on exactly how you can fill out this form and see exactly what you should be paying quarterly. But later in the video, I'll give you a quick estimate for how you can figure this number out without using the form 1040-ES. But in general, you can kind of know that, okay, if I'm making like 6 figures per year online, then I'm going to be paying my taxes quarterly. If I am making, say, $100 online, then probably not, but in general, about $10,000 per year is that threshold where once you get over that, the IRS is going to want to start getting paid on a quarterly basis rather than yearly. So now how do we actually figure out how much these quarterly taxes are going to be? Okay, at this point, okay, I have to pay quarterly taxes. I know that. How much am I actually supposed to be giving the IRS? Well, so like I said, the calculation is a bit complicated, and I'll have videos coming in the future on exactly how you're going to work through that, because that's a whole process. But just to give you an idea of the 2 types of taxes you're going to be paying quarterly and approximately how much those are going to be, we're going to cover that right now. And so this is a little bit more complicated. So maybe like bust out a pen and paper at this point and just take a couple notes, because once you understand this stuff, you're going to have a much better understanding of honestly the tax system as a whole. This is a really big part of what you're going to need to know as a self-employed person, online entrepreneur, what have you. So this stuff is actually really, really important for you to fully understand. So there are 2 types of taxes that you're going to be paying quarterly. Okay, you got your income taxes and you have your self-employment taxes. And yes, there are specific taxes that you're paying for being self-employed. We'll get to those in a little bit. We'll start off with the income taxes side of the equation. So these income taxes are the same income taxes you'd be paying if you had a job, same tax brackets, same tax deductions, all of that good stuff. And this calculation, like I was saying earlier, is a bit complicated. You gotta have your tax bracket, your deductions, your credits, all of that good stuff. So it gets a bit lengthy. It's a bit beyond the scope of this video. I'll have a full video coming soon on how to calculate your individual income taxes. But for now, just know that that's one part of the taxes you got to be paying quarterly is your federal income taxes, and also potentially state income taxes if you live in a state like I do that charges you income taxes for your particular state. Now, what's important to know for the purposes of this video is that your income taxes are applied to your profits. Okay, so you're not charged income taxes on your gross income of your business. You're charged income taxes on the profits of your business. You get to deduct out your business expenses, but like I said, we'll have a full video coming on that soon, so don't worry too much about that for now. So that's all pretty straightforward. That's kind of what you think about when you hear paying your taxes. You're thinking about income taxes. Now, self-employment tax, on the other hand, yes, these are real, yes, they are required, and they are a little bit simpler to calculate, which is a good thing, okay? Because income taxes, those can get a bit lengthy, a bit complicated, all your deductions, credits, etc. Self-employment taxes are quite a bit simpler, but these guys do tend to sneak up on newer online entrepreneurs, because if you didn't know that self-employment taxes were a thing, you get hit with those and you're like, oh, I was planning for income taxes, not for self-employment taxes as well. So you'll want to know about both of these. Now, like I said, they're easier to calculate because they are a flat 15.3% applied to all of your income below a certain income threshold. Once you get above that threshold, it gets a bit more complicated, so we'll just talk about below. So if you're making below $142,800, then it's a flat 15.3% on all of that income. Once you get above that threshold, it's a little bit more complicated. There's a couple different rules and a couple different thresholds you got to follow beyond that, but just know that if you're making below $142,800, then it is a flat 15.3% across the board, again, on your profits, not the gross income of your business. Now, technically, if you work a job, you actually also pay these taxes, but they're called payroll taxes instead of self-employment taxes, and you're only paying half of them because your employer is picking up the other half. But as an online entrepreneur, you have the luxury of being both your employer and your employee, so you get to pay both halves of these taxes taxes, which is a nice perk to being self-employed. One benefit though is that you do get to deduct half of them, the half that you're paying on the kind of employer side of things, you get to deduct those for your income taxes. So there's a little bit of a benefit there, emphasis on kind of little benefit, but just know that even if you are an employee, you're already paying these taxes, and these go towards things like Social Security and Medicare. So on your pay stub at a job, you're gonna see your Social Security tax, your Medicare tax. Those are your payroll taxes. When you're self-employed, you just basically double those, and those are your self-employment tax. All right, so at this point, you know what self-employment taxes are, you know whether you need to pay them or not, and you know exactly what kinds of taxes you're going to be paying. Now, how do you actually go about paying these things? What is the process for getting the IRS their money? Well, unfortunately, the IRS refuses to download Venmo. They're pretty old school here. You can't just Cash App them. You need to actually go to their website, and you've got a couple different options once you get there. The two real options are to link a bank account or to use a credit or debit card. They also allow you to mail in a check, but I mean, like, let's be real, guys. Like, who uses the mail? Who writes checks anymore? So your two real options are to link your bank account or to use a credit or debit card to pay your taxes. Now, if you link a bank account, there are going to be no fees associated with that. So you just get the money pulled straight out of your bank account, no fees. With a card, you're going to be facing about 2% to 3% in fees. So in general, I would recommend doing a bank account. It really does pay to have tax money on hand throughout the year. Personally, what I do is I set aside 25% of my gross income that comes in from my business. I set that aside for taxes right off the top, goes into a separate bank entirely, not even just a separate bank account, a separate bank where I can't even see it, can't even touch it. And it just sits there until my quarterly taxes are due. And then I've just got that cash. I can directly send it off to the IRS, no fees, no penalties, no interest, none of that stuff. And it just makes things a lot more simple and streamlined for me personally. So once you decide how you want to actually pay your taxes, then it comes time to actually make the payment on the IRS's website. We're gonna dive into my computer, and I'm gonna give you a full walkthrough on exactly how to do that right now. All right, so here we are on my computer. I'm gonna show you exactly how to pay your quarterly taxes. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to go to the IRS's website. So we're gonna go to irs.gov/payments. And this is exactly where you're gonna wanna go. This is the only place you're gonna wanna pay your quarterly taxes. Do not do this anywhere else. This is the one spot where you should do it. So you're gonna see this box here that says pay your taxes now. You're gonna have the option to go either bank account or debit or credit card. Like I said, bank account is free, debit or credit card, you're gonna have some fees there. So we'll just go to bank account. We're gonna say make a payment. And it's going to take us right here. And this is all pretty self-explanatory. From here on out, you're going to need to make an account at some point. But the only thing that you'll really need to know is under reason for payment, you're going to want to select estimated tax. That's really the only thing that you're going to need to know. The rest of this is all super self-explanatory. Once you figure out how much your taxes actually are, you'll just fill that in and you'll be all set to go. One other thing that I want to note here before we move on to some things you're going to want to watch out for is that once you get your confirmation email from the IRS that your payment was received, make sure that you save that, put it in your records, keep with all the other tax records that I'm sure you're keeping. Just make sure that you save that, put it aside, so that if there ever does come a time where you need to show that, we need to prove that, you do have that there, and you're not kind of scrambling to figure out where it went. So honestly, if you don't already have a place where you're keeping your tax documents, your PDFs, all of that stuff that you need for your taxes, your business registration, all that stuff, your EIN number, all that stuff should really be in one specific folder. Keep that stuff safe, keep it together, because when taxes come due, it's just gonna make your life a lot easier if all that stuff is in one place. Now, let's move on to some stuff that you need to watch out for when you are paying your quarterly taxes. Now that you know how to actually pay your tax on the IRS's website, a really important note that I wanna make is avoiding scammers, okay? Because there are a lot of people out there that will try to take advantage of you. They know that a lot of newer online entrepreneurs don't know a lot about taxes, and so they're going to try to tell you that they are the IRS, that you owe them money, that they're going to arrest you, come to your house, all of that good stuff, okay? Don't pay any attention to these people, okay? They are, the IRS is never going to call you. Like I said, they're very old school. If they wanted to get a hold of you, what they would do, they would send you a notarized letter. If you didn't respond to that, they'd send you another one. And then at that point, they're really going to start to come after you. But until you're getting multiple letters from the IRS and you are like really doing some serious tax evasion here, don't give any credibility to these people that call you and tell you that they are the IRS. They are scammers. They're going to take your money, and the IRS is not on their way to arrest you right now. And honestly, whenever these people call you, you can just tell them to go themselves. So now you might be wondering at this point, what happens if I don't pay my taxes quarterly and I am actually supposed to? Well, that is called tax evasion. Now, not actually, but if you are required based on the IRS statutes to pay your taxes on a quarterly basis and you don't, there are some consequences that come in the form of interest and penalties for not doing so. That being said, that doesn't mean that everybody actually chooses to do this. So like I mentioned earlier, I've got friends who are making serious money online that choose not to pay their taxes quarterly because they feel they can get a higher return on that cash by reinvesting it back into their business throughout the year than they could by paying it to the IRS. And so because of that, they get hit with some serious fees and penalties. And also they are breaking the law because the IRS legally requires them to pay their taxes on a quarterly basis, which they are not doing. Now, some people will say that this increases your chances of being audited. I don't have any concrete proof on that either way, but it definitely does not lower your odds of being audited if you are not paying your taxes on a quarterly basis. Now, that being said, what is the financial cost of this decision? Well, it's going to really vary based on your personal situation, so I can't really give a blanket statement here, but what's happening is that you're getting charged interest on the money that you are not paying in taxes because the IRS is basically treating that as a loan that they have made to you. So you owe the IRS, say, $10,000, you didn't pay that, the IRS is treating that as, okay, we lent you $10,000, we're charging interest on that loan, and you're gonna have to pay that interest when you do decide to eventually pay your taxes. On top of that, you're also getting assessed fees for late payments. So you're basically getting these fees and this interest, and it's kind of like this big snowball that is just accumulating, so that when you do go to pay your taxes, you've got a potentially serious amount of fees and penalties that have built up over time. Now, like I said, it's gonna vary on your personal situation, but these fees and penalties can accumulate to anywhere from like 10% all the way up to like 25% or more, depending on your situation. Again, how long it's been since you were supposed to pay your taxes and just what kind of tax bill you are looking at. So in general, would not recommend this under any circumstances. Personally, I do choose to pay my taxes quarterly. Also, it's legally required, so there's that. But again, if you are above that IRS set threshold, you are legally required to pay them taxes on a quarterly basis, and you should probably do that if you don't want to be breaking the law. Now, if you realize that, oh shoot, I haven't been paying quarterly, but I'm actually supposed to based on the IRS statutes, don't panic. The IRS is not going to come breaking down your door right now, but you can choose to start paying your quarterly taxes at any point. You don't have to wait until the next available date for quarterly taxes. The IRS's wallet is always open. They're always willing to accept your cash, so you can start paying these things whenever you realize that you want to. Now, to make a quarterly estimated tax payment, it's the exact same process, even if you're not doing it on one of the set dates. You're just going to go to the IRS's website, irs.gov/payments. You're going to go to make a payment. You're going to set your reason to estimated payment, and you are going to pay whatever you think you should be paying based on what we said earlier. And the benefit to that is the sooner you do that, the lower the interest that has accumulated, the lower the fees, all of that good stuff. So basically, the sooner you correct this issue, the lower you are going to be assessed in fees and penalties. And it's even possible to get some of these fees and penalties waived if you did not realize you were supposed to be paying, if it's your first year as an online entrepreneur and it really just threw you off guard. There is a form you can actually file, which I'll link in the description below, if you want to appeal some of those fees and try to get them reduced or potentially even eliminated. Now, in closing, to wrap this all up and put a bow on it, if you are an online entrepreneur making serious money online, you're likely required to pay your taxes on a quarterly basis, legally required to do so by the IRS statutes. If you decide not to do that, IRS is going to hit you with some fees, some penalties, some interest, all that good stuff. It's going to snowball, and it's going to add up to be a decently significant charge on top of the fact that you are in fact breaking the law. Now, figuring out the exact amount due on your quarterly taxes is going to potentially be a little bit tricky if you're not super familiar with the tax system, but I'll have a full video coming out about that soon. It's typically doable for the beginner online entrepreneur, but again, if your situation is complicated, talk to an expert, talk to a CPA, a tax specialist, whatever, what have you. It's likely gonna be a worthwhile investment just to get a second opinion on your situation. Make sure that you're not missing anything important there. Now, if you have any additional questions about quarterly taxes, feel free to drop those in the comments below or reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to help you out in any way that I am able to. Now, the next thing you should do is click that subscribe button down below and check out this video over here where I dive deep into taxes on TikTok, exactly how these work. If you're making money on TikTok, you are going to want to watch that video because I'm going to break down exactly the tax consequences of the money that you're making over there, because there are some serious consequences that you got to keep in mind. So check out that video and I'll see you over there.